Good afternoon, all of you.
Good afternoon, madam.
So, I think your exams went well. Where were we in the last class? So, we move on to the next chapter, but Deep, please ensure that in the lab we're going to have the audience analysis activity that I have briefed you up. Okay, go on to the next unit. Okay, so uh, we'll talk about the introductory speech. So you get an idea of how to prepare an introductory speech because that's what we're going to start immediately after your audience analysis. I think it's visible to all of you.
Yes, ma'am.
So this is a the chapter objectives. After reading this chapter, you should be able to explain why informative speeches are important, recognize the functions of informative speeches, identify the main responsibilities of the informative speaker, list and describe the four types of informative speeches, discuss techniques to make informative speeches interesting, coherent, and memorable. I think you might have well decided your topic for your informative speech. Okay, so that's the objective. Well, informative speech is to inform, to impart knowledge, to inspire, to give information or enlightenment, to furnish evidence. These are some of the meanings of information. To inform. So when you're informing, you are you don't have to submit it, Saishri. You'll have to do it in the lab itself. No? Uh, is Deep clear about it? Deep, are you there? Yes, I think is the activity clear to you? What I said. Okay, and could you just please remind that or clarify that to your class members? Saishri, yeah, yeah, it's a team activity, and you'll have
Okay, ma'am. I'll get the details from Deep. Thank you.
yeah, you'll have to present that in the lab, and there's no submission here, so you'll have to probably speak up. You might have if you want to do a slideshow, you can do that, but then ensure that all the members of the group speak. You see to
Okay,
it
ma'am.
that everyone speaks, and it's an audience analysis. Uh, Probably the last the activity is just to you know, the expand the acronym audience. So there are 8 letters, and you have to base your entire activity centered around this 8 letters. You'll have to choose a product, I guess, and based on that product, you need to do the audience analysis. And for further information, I think Deep is always available for
Okay,
clarifying
ma'am.
things.
Sure, ma'am.
Yeah. Next class. I mean, when is your next lab? When is it? Yeah, yeah. So on Tuesday. So all of you, Sai Shri and others, please get ready by next Tuesday in the lab. We're going to have this activity. If you'd like to share your screen and do an activity slideshow, you can.
Okay, ma'am. Sure. Thank you.
So, well, inform. The word inform has many meanings. To impart knowledge, to animate, inspire, inform, enlighten, give evidence, to make aware of something, to communicate something of interest or special importance, to give directions, and to provide news, facts, data, intelligence, all this. Now, when it's an informative speech, your primary purpose is to give your audience information that they did not already know, or to teach them more about a topic with which they are already familiar. Now, this is something of importance, and this should be the guiding principle for deciding on a topic for your informative speech. So, the primary objective of informative speech is to inform your audience about something that they did not already know. So, please choose a topic which you think your audience might not know before, or to tell them in detail, to give them more insights into a topic that they probably might have superficially known, right? And I will see to it that you cater to the objective of an informative speech topic. Since I've not asked you to uh, disclose the details like I did for your persuasive speech, so I don't know, but I'll see to it that you at least fulfill the desired objective. You speak on something that your audience doesn't know prior to that. So you are informing them on something quite new for them. Now that's a learning experience. So your audience also gets to know what I'm saying, and uh, you also learn something new. The point is, don't start with a sensitive topic like environment pollution. If you want to, then give us some new insights on that. Give us some details on what kind of policy changes can be done to tackle climate change that none of us probably know. So if you want to indulge in a topic that everyone knows and that's quite familiar, so divulge something which we don't know, or you can bring up something very new which your audience might not know, and that's quite important. So informative speech uh, gives your audience information that they did not already know. So uh, if you want to talk about child labor, dowry deaths, give us some new insights on it, okay? Or bring in something very, very new. Could be about a person, could be about an event, could be about a process, a theory, anything. So your purpose is to teach them something more, give some fresh insight on a topic which we already know, or give something completely new, novel. Please remember this. Now, what are the functions of informative speeches? They provide people with knowledge, they shape our perceptions, they serve to articulate alternatives, and enhance our ability to survive and evolve. Okay? So, your speech topic may cater to any of this. Either you want to provide us with some interesting facts and knowledge, or you give us uh, some some insights on certain things which could shape our perceptions, things that we did not know before, or things which we knew but we overgeneralized. Um, so, giving us some fresh perceptions and insights, or tell us something about how to devise some alternatives alternatives to certain things that we are still using. If you're talking about climate change, then maybe you can give us some alternatives to reduce carbon footprints. Or it could also enhance our ability to survive and evolve. And all the more in times of pandemic. So these are some of the functions of informative speech. And your speech must at least cater to one of them, one of these functions, right? Now, informative speakers are objective. What is the role of the speaker? Since this is quite different from persuasive speech, you need to be a little objective. Okay? So, informative speeches have a persuasive component by virtue of the fact that the speaker tries to convince the audience that the facts presented are accurate. You have to focus on facts, data, statistics. And you have to somehow convince your audience that the facts and data presented in your speech are accurate. This could partly be possible with your impression with your audience, with your relationship with the audience, if they really trust you. So here the co-orientational view of argumentation comes in. And you have to ensure that the data and figures that you give, that you present, or that you suffice for your argumentation are are correct, accurate, and your audience must be able to trust you on that. Second, informative speech can be very dry. So you can make this entertaining through illustrations, vivid and colorful language, powerful visuals, or unusual facts. Because we are simply here to give information. We are not persuading, we are not convincing our audience. See, there's a huge difference between an informative speech and a persuasive talk. In a persuasive talk, you have to make an appeal, you have to make an emotional connect with your audience. You have to arouse their emotions, their empathy. But that's not the case with informative speech. So you are going to present data which could be extremely dry. For example, if you're going to talk about black holes, now that could be quite quite uninteresting at times. So you can make that interesting by using powerful visuals or some good illustrations. Maybe you can use some very vivid language or maybe unusual facts that could that could be really interesting. Okay. Now you have to be objective. You can't be skewed. You can't be you have to at least show your audience that you're impartial. You're impartial to certain things, and maybe maybe your image as an impartial speaker might enhance your credibility. How and credibility or ethos refers to an audience's perception that the speaker is well prepared and qualified to speak on a topic. So if tomorrow I go on to speak on networking, programming language, it's, I might fail to arouse or I might fail to create the credibility because I'm not the right person to speak on networking or programming language, even if I prepare really well. So you just have to ensure that your audience perceives you as an objective speaker, as someone who is qualified to speak on a particular topic, right? So this enhances your credibility, and you can fathom this out with your own with the kind of discussions uh, that you do in the lab and the way people perceive you. So that's a good scale to measure as to what could be the topic for you, what could be the right topic for you, where people will perceive you as someone who is qualified enough to speak on a particular topic. So credibility, trustworthiness, co-orientational view of argumentation. This is this is a very important aspect of public speaking, or else all your preparation, all your logic, everything fails if your audience doesn't trust you. If they think you are not the right person to talk, you are not the person qualified enough to talk on a certain aspect. And for this, you need an audience analysis. So see how all of them are connected, are linked together. You don't really have to take the trouble of doing an audience analysis with your friends because uh, you know them well and you know how they perceive you. So that also takes care of how you decide to prepare on a particular topic. So this is important. Informative speakers have to be objective because you're presenting facts and data. Now you simply have to convince your audience that the facts that you're presenting is accurate. And that comes out of credibility, the kind of relationship that you share with your audience. They must be convinced that you are the right person to talk on a certain topic. Okay? And the rest can be taken care of. So you have to be objective because you're not going to take a stand on a particular issue. You're not taking a stand. You have to be objective. You have to enhance your credibility so that the audience believes that you are qualified enough to speak on a particular topic. So choose your topic wisely. Uh, they are knowledgeable, yes, because informative speeches contain a number of different source citations throughout the speech. So you don't create stuffs. You have to research well because you have to collect information and you have to collect information and share it from different sources. So don't open up Wikipedia pages. And do you know that Wikipedia does substantial and credible news at times? Do you know this? So Wikipedia is not always a credible source of information. So don't go and open a Wikipedia page and lift things and cut, copy, paste. Look for different sources. the sources, quotation, quote it. So you're also taking care of plagiarism and academic integrity. Please quote the sources that you've got and the questions that you're getting. What are the recent interviews? Okay. When you're opening a particular website, ensure that or find out uh, who is sponsoring the website. Is it some terrorist organization? Is it someone else? So you get the credibility factor out of that. So when you're giving an informative speech, the speech must have lot of citation. Citation means acknowledging the different sources that you have used. So my recommendation would be not to open a particular Wikipedia page and cut copy everything from there. Go to different links, go on to different other sources and find out. Sometimes Wikipedia also is not a very credible source of information. So it is important. Now, the most challenging task is to find out what is credible and what is not. You never know what's fake information and what's not. There's so much of information overload that it becomes really difficult. It becomes challenging for us to find out what is a trustworthy source of information, what is the truth and what is not. So ensure that you have lot of different citations, different sources, because the last slide before the thank you slide, you must have a list of sources that you have used for your speech. And I'll see to that. Okay, so good informative speeches must contain a number of different source citation. Very important. Different source citations throughout the speech. You simply can't lift things only from Wikipedia. Don't do this. That's detrimental. To show that the information you present is accurate and complete, remember that these sources should be up to date, reliable, unbiased, and directly relevant to your topic. Now, you simply have to know uh, what is a reliable source when you're quoting things. It could be books, but I'm not sure if you're going to quote it from the books. Most of you rely on the internet, and that's all right. But when you're doing so, ensure that you go to a credible source, a reliable source, whose informations are recent. So there has to be recency that we read in evidence, if you remember. In the chapter of evidence, we were talking about how do we examine or evaluate the evidence, and one of the factors was, besides objectivity and unbiased nature, was recency. How recent is the study done? Now, you're going to talk about girl child education in a particular area of India, and you're going to show up a statistics done in 2008. Yeah, that uh, doesn't give you a very recent data. Things have changed in these 12 years. So when you're picking up data and statistics, ensure that they are recent, up to date. Okay? So good informative speeches must have different Look, I'm highlighting, I'm emphasizing on the word different source citations. Not everything quoted from Wikipedia. Please spare some time to design your uh, visual aids, your PowerPoint presentations. And the sources that you quote must be up to date and reliable, must come from a reliable source. Start working on your PPT from today. By next, this the coming week on Tuesday, we'll have the audience analysis, and maybe by next week we start with our PPT. And that's a compulsory event, mandatory event for all of you. You can't skip it. So start preparing your PowerPoint from today itself. Think of a topic. Well, four types of informative speeches: definitional, descriptive, explanatory, and demonstrative. Definition, see the words, define them. So they are self explanatory, definitional, descriptive, explanatory, or demonstration. So you can choose one of this. Definitional speeches is the speaker attempts to set forth the meaning of concepts, theories, philosophies, issues that may be unfamiliar to the audience. So, speakers begin by giving the historical derivation, classification, or synonyms of the terms or background of the subject. So, you basically define. Now, when you're going to define a certain term or a theory or a concept, you have to go back. You have to go back to the etymology of the genesis of the term, historical relevance, and how it has evolved. All this comes in, isn't it? So this is definitional speeches. It talks about uh, concepts, theories, or issues that we don't know. So you start off with the etymology, with the origin, with the historical derivation, classification. We go on to talk about atoms and molecules, how atoms and molecules start. Just a basic preliminary. I'm just giving you an example. So you have to start with the atomic theory given by Dalton and how it was flawed, how there was a revision done, how it was evolved, and how this atomic theory existed long back in India and Greece. Okay, so how we had this Maharshi Kanad who talked about, but where they mistaken was that this the subdivided, but now the experiments done by the later scientists prove that atom can be divided further. So it's like this. You go on to talk about the historical derivation, the etymology of the word, uh, the relevance, the classification. This. So if you're going to make a talk on uh, atoms and molecules, this is how you're going to start off. That's a definitional speech. Now, coming to, am I clear for those who are listening? Is this clear to you? I guess only Deep is listening, or maybe Deep is representative to the whole class.
No, ma'am, we're listening.
A lot of other people
Great.
are also listening.
Yeah. What Yeah. No, I'm still not audible.
Ma'am, your voice is breaking.
Oh,
I thought it's my network, is it?
yeah. Now am I audible?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. Now descriptive. So this simplifies the things for you. You know, you can decide on what exactly you can speak. You can either define something. This simplifies choosing a topic for you. You know, you can either define a concept or a theory. Things. So the verb descriptive speeches. Am I audible now, folks?
Yes,
Yes,
ma'am.
ma'am.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So the purpose of descriptive speeches is to provide a detailed, vivid, has to be extremely vivid. No, it should be like a word picture. Like the other day we were discussing about apple, if you remember. You know, crunchy apple. So that makes it very vivid. Just adding an adjective to apple makes the picture. So that makes uh, script and still not audible. Yeah, now am I audible? Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
So descriptive speeches or descriptive writing, you know, gives a very detailed and vivid word picture. So you literally paint through words, not through brushes, but through words. So if you go on to read good stories, good narratives, you see how nicely they have painted the entire scenario with their words. There is every detail, minute details. And when we were describing about how to write or how to describe a fresh apple, you know, you can simply add an adjective like crunchy apple. So crunchiness, the crunchy apple that gives a vivid picture. You can visualize. So when you're writing a descriptive piece or when you're writing a descriptive text, you have to be you have to be extremely vivid in describing things so that your audience gets to visualizes things, gets to picturize uh, picturize the things that you're intending to say. You have to be specific, you have to be detailed, and you must have a good vocabulary of adjectives and active verbs, because adjectives and active verbs uh, gives a vividness to your text, to your writing. So descriptive speeches provides a very vivid word picture of a person, animal, place, or object. So if you want to describe a place that you have visited that many of us don't know, say a remote island in the Caribbeans, and you visited maybe before the pandemic, and you'd like to talk about that, about the culture, about the language, about the other nuances of the social life of the people there, you have to be extremely detailed in your description. So you can use that also as as a speech topic, as a speech theme. You know, giving a description of a place or an object or a person. So audiences carry away in their minds a very clear vision of the subject. So that they should they should be your audience should be carried away with your speech, literally visualizing everything that you say. So that can also be part of your informative speech topic, describing a particular place. Yeah, because uh, we haven't, I mean, we haven't traveled all the places, so you can pick up a place and use that as your informative speech topic. Now, don't tell Delhi, Mumbai, and all that. But if you want to, you can make it interesting by not giving us the mainstream locations. If you want to talk about Mumbai, maybe you can make it more interesting by uh, giving us some details about the the little details or the little nuances of the life of common people there, or places which people don't often visit, the slums, the other places which we don't really visit when we are on our trip to a particular city. I don't know if I was telling your class, but I was reading about a person who has done a PhD, and then he thought of opening his own bookshop, and in Himachal, in the sleepy hills of the Himachal, and then he decided to become a tourist guide. He guided people who came to the place, maybe Dharamshala, yeah, Dharamshala, and he took them on treks on the hills, and he talked about uh, the details of the daily lives, the daily routine, and some very fascinating facts and information about the local area, the local place, the food, the mythology, the history of the place. So he made an interesting narrative of the place. So a tourist guide has a lot of information. He gives us a lot of information, and he makes it very interesting by giving us some details about things that we usually don't come across, we usually don't read. So he gives us a local flavor of the place. You go and talk to tourist guides in different places, in historical places. I remember when I visited the Taj, we had a guide who talked about a completely alternative story about the Taj Mahal. He said how the Taj Mahal was basically a Hindu temple and how it was desecrated. And he gave all the details, very in depth view. So maybe you can pick up something like that for your informative speech, and not telling us these are the places to be visited. So Bhubaneswar, I don't know about many other places, but Bhubaneswar, Lingaraj Temple, areas in and around Dhauli and Khandagiri. No, don't make it so uninteresting and monotonous. If you really want to talk about a place, talk about the little nuances, the little details that we don't know, the history, the mythology associated with the place, the life of the common man, so that audience have a clear vision in their mind when they go back. It becomes it becomes very memorable for all of them. So that also can be a speech topic. descriptive speech. Explanatory is, again, when you're clarifying the topic. So it focuses on reports of the current and historical events, customs, transformations, inventions, policies, outcomes, options. Okay, so explanatory speeches focus on how or why of a subject and its consequences. So if you go on to explain a particular topic, that's explain. So you can also decide on this. What are the policies? What are the outcomes? What are the different options? Now, no, the highlight of today's news media is the all-party meet that Prime Minister is hosting on Kashmir. So, if you want to talk about the Kashmir policies, you can talk about the policies, the outcomes, how and why of a subject, and its consequences. And that comes under explanatory speeches. And then you have demonstration speeches. Now, this is a very practical aspect of all informative speeches because you literally demonstrate. You show your listeners how some process is accomplished or how to perform it themselves. So you're demonstrating. You have all those little videos on YouTube how to do, isn't it? So the focus is on a chronology explanation. Say, for example, how potato chips are made. Chronology. You have to give a chronology. Now, uh, bring the potatoes, wash them, peel them. So there's a chronology. There's a sequence. Or how to fight fires on a submarine. A procedure. Or an application. How to use the calendar function in Outlook. Or course of action. How court cases proceed to Supreme Court status. So, demonstration speeches. You're literally demonstrating how to accomplish a certain process or a certain procedure. Okay, and you have to take care of the chronology, sequence, stepwise procedure. In a demonstration speech, you have to talk about a certain procedure in a stepwise manner. First this, then this, third this. It could be, making chips. It could be fighting a fire, or it could be how to use a calendar function, or just showing them how court cases go to the Supreme Court status. These are demonstration speeches. So these are the four types of speeches. Definition, you want to define something. Now, when you're defining, you have to go back to the historical derivation, the etymology, the everything, and then come to the present definition, how it has evolved and how it is changing. Descriptive, when you're very, very vividly describing a particular place or event or things. And for this, you must have a very active vocabulary of adjective and verbs. Very important because this gives a vividness to your speech, to your talk. Explanatory, explaining a process, why or how, and demonstration. We are literally demonstrating them on how to do a certain thing. So all of them come under the informative speech arena. right? Now you decide on what you exactly would like to do. How would you make your speech memorable? By building in repetition, keep repeating. That's important. Repetition is a very significant aspect in in giving out information on key ideas. If you want your audience to remember the key ideas, keep repeating, like we do, like the teachers in the class do. They keep repeating things. Why? Because they want to reinforce the key ideas so that you remember it. You are it's reinforced. Appeal to different ways of learning and use visuals, and that is why informative speech, preferably through a PPT. So, the primary goal of informative speaking is to increase listeners' knowledge. This is the one thing that you have to remember all time when you are deciding on a speech topic. Why are you speaking? Not to, not as a part of your lab modality, but you want to increase the listener's knowledge. Let this be a learning experience for all of us. Let us gain knowledge from what you're going to say. Okay, so it increases the listener's knowledge so they can better understand the world around them and can make informed decisions. Knowledge has power and it controls access to opportunity and advancement. So it's knowledge is power. So what's more powerful today? It's knowledge. Knowledge is more powerful. So if you have knowledge, you have power because you can you have all the opportunities for evolving and developing. Right? Yeah. Power comes through something, isn't it? So when we believe that it was through money, through wealth brings power, but now it's knowledge. The country or the administration or the person who has more knowledge, has more information, is more powerful. They are more powerful. Yeah. Okay, so any questions? I don't see many girls in your class. What happened to them? All of them? They are relaxing from the exams, post exam. Oh, Akanksha and Saishri, where are the others? And I don't happen to see or listen to many of you in the lab as well. It's the boys who dominate in the lab. Vis-a-vis in other sections where there are girls who predominantly participate, but why are the girls so silent in your class? Don't happen to see. It was Anisha who used to speak, but I guess she's not keeping well these days. What about others? Why don't I find many of you speaking up? Minorities. Okay, so I think all of you will get prepared on these lines for your informative speech topic. I've given you a brief guideline on how to prepare your PowerPoint and what to speak. Informative. No, 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 no. The informative speech that you're going to do must be accompanied with a visual aid. And the visual aid that you're going to use is the PowerPoint. So both of them you have to sync it together. They are not different. But I've given you a guideline on how to prepare a PPT, isn't it? In the visual aid chapter. No, 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 no. I told that you should not crowd your slides with lot of information by directly copying things, lifting things from the Wikipedia and pasting it in the slides. You have to speak. No, no, you have to speak. This is a speech class and you have to speak, isn't it? But don't crowd too much of information in your slides. So I gave you the guidelines on how to prepare your slides, PPT, and what are the topics you can choose. So these are the two areas which you have to sync together, and you have to come up with a brilliant speech topic and a very colorful and interesting PowerPoint. Right? Okay. So I guess I told you. I didn't. I think I did. Definition. So you can use a concept or a theory. Descriptive, you can describe a place. Yeah, broad areas. Yeah. Okay. So for any other information, maybe next class, we'll talk about this in the next class. Thank you. Thank you all of you. Yeah.
Thank you, ma'am.